All right, everybody, welcome to the 2021 Virtual Christmas Summit brought to you by Boscoyo Studio. This presentation is sponsored by Build a Light Show. As a reminder, please don't unmute yourself or interrupt the presenter, and feel free to put any questions or discussions in the chat throughout the presentation. This is sequencing for high density props presented by Ron Howard, and in this class we're going to take a look at exploring the fun and easy ways to bring your HD props to life. And with that, I will turn it over to you, Ron, to take it away.
Thank you kindly, sir. Welcome, everybody. It's great to be here. Again, a nice shout out to the other sponsors who are participating and the entire staff and the mayor of X-Lights and CEO, CFO, CIO, CTIO, and CTO of the VCS. Thank you, Ed. And I'm just sort of humbled to be able to be here and present two courses today and actually have a little vendor room we had earlier to talk about things. So I'm having a blast, and my blast comes at an expense. It's my 11th year wedding anniversary. So once we conclude a bit today, I need to take the family out to a dinner and keep my wife in good standing. So, but my wife loves this hobby and she understands. So let's get into this. What are we going to talk about today? Well, high density sequencing. There's a long painted story of my relationship with Gilbert Engineering and how this all started. And we don't have that kind of time. I'm sure I'll hit on points of it, but I think it was love at first sight. And it wasn't bad that there were coral props too. And it was sort of this very interesting and blossoming relationship at that business level, at that creative level, and at such a inclusive and respectful level of each other's art. And it was just, we were just the peanut butter and chocolate to a Reese's peanut butter cup. And Chris is right in there with us. I mean, actually, I think she's probably the wrapping. She's the one that kind of helps keep everything going, I think, at times. Because if you put Jason, Gilbert, and I in a room and we start collaborating on ideas and concepts, typically an hour becomes 7 hours, and it just felt like an hour, but it's just a whole lot of fun. So I want to talk about some of the high density props, but I do want to preface, there are other providers of props out there that have high density stuff, so I don't want to leave them out. I don't use a ton of these other props because of the relationship I have and the working relationship, but I think no matter what your prop is, it should have submodels, it should have groups, and I think shapes are very important to these models when you're sequencing. We've seen the flakes, different size flakes and all that kind of stuff for years. I think what's truly been immersive and unique are the different patterns and shapes of the models that have come out over the last couple of years. As a sequencer, it has been a dream come true and truly something that's stretched my imagination and stretched me as a sequencer to have to perform at different levels to bring these models to life from an effects point of view. And again, if you don't have the same model, you can take effects from just about anything and apply it to that model or to the submodel group or to the groups and get it dancing well. So never feel bad about your purchases. It's more of an education issue than anything else. And we'll talk about using existing effects on high density props. Okay. So again, my story, in case you missed me earlier today when we did the intro to layering, I've been telling stories with lights for 6 years. I'm a family dude, love drumming and cycling. And something else you may not know about me is that I once held my breath for 4 minutes and 20 seconds. I was at a beach and an ex-wife showed up for money and I went swimming. No, that's not true. That's not true. There was never an ex-wife at a beach, but I did hold my breath for 4 minutes and 20 seconds. And as you can see, I used to be a rock drummer, and then I worked in the corporate world. And this is what I look like now, running my own business as a sequencer. It's quite the progression. So, high density props. When you're going to mess in this world with high density props, it can look overwhelming. Try not to let it. X-Lights has done some amazing things to contain this madness so that you don't have to go through the painstaking efforts and work that it requires to create this to work in X-Lights. There's a lovely group of us. Eric Meyer is a gentleman that does quite a bit of submodeling work. Gary Hatt as well. And Eric Scholes has helped out in finding little issues here and there. And of course, myself and the Gilberts. It's the kind of nice thing about this, what I call this little family, is that we all get together and try to work for the better good of the community by pushing the limits of these models. It's just that fun. But there are some rules to this, and meticulous attention to order and detail matter. We try to take a lot of that legwork for you, but I will explain some of the legwork you will need. And that is, before you populate your high density props with pixels, have a plan in place. Figure out where you're going to start in the center or the top. Are you going to start on the outside? Because this will matter for some of these models, specifically the native models, that being the Grand Illusion with 1,000 nodes, or the 640 node mother of all reads. And there's the baby of all reads, which is a subset of this, and a baby grand, which is a subset of this. You have to pay attention where you're going to start these pixels. And if you mess up, don't pull them all out. There are ways to fix this. You might have to make a few changes in X-Lights, but don't feel bad and have to repoke all these, okay? And the same, if you have a Rosa Grande and you deviated from course and made your own, well, you're just going to spend quite a bit of time creating all of your submodels. So hopefully you follow this course. I know Gilbert Engineering will be printing, or is already printing, on the back of the substrate the wiring diagrams, which is great. That should help out tremendously, and maybe take those blisters away from your hands from using the marker and replace them with poking the pixels, because you're going to get them anyway. If we look over here on this side, the Grand Illusion, we can see that we know that this is a native model because it gives us the individual nodes per layer. A custom model will not give this to you, okay? So when sequencing, there are things to consider when we're talking about the native versus non-native, the custom models. All right. So everyone needs a map, easy peasy pleasy. For my sequences and my layout, I provide this to everybody. They should have access to this. The file is in Extreme Sequences Syndicate in the file section, and this is the blueprint to my show. So we'll list all the high density flakes. It'll have a link to the flake. It'll tell you how many nodes are in it, all the high density the same way, and it will also tell you what group order they are in. So if you're using the Grand Illusion, the Grand Illusion group is at the top, followed by this, and on down, and you would want to put yours in that same order. That's important, that the order is in the correct order. X-Lights gives you the ability to create multiple views. So if you're working with another sequencer, maybe you've got something from Barry Wiles and he has a Grand Illusion or something similar, his order may be different. So you would create a different view, and maybe you call that the Barry Wiles view or whatever you want to, and use that to work with his sequences. So there's really not an excuse not to make the mapping work on every sequence if you have like for like models or similar models. Okay. So again, I prefer the short presentations so that we can get directly in to X-Lights. And I want to expand a little bit more about this thing on, let me just break these down so we have a little more real estate. There we go. In the display elements, because I said order matters. And so this is my main sequence view that I have just docked without holding down my control key. There we go. In my master view, this is just a normal view, and every time you open up a sequence and you start to map, this may not stay in order. So what I recommend for everyone is to put this in the perfect order you want, clone the master view, give it a name. I gave it this name. Then you tell it to make master, and because the sequence is open, it's going to bark at me. The benefit of doing this is every time you open up or create a new sequence, you're going to see a choice in your drop down of views. It's going to ask you, do you want master view or do you want one of the others? And if you choose the view that you created, this will always be in the same hierarchical order. Can you say hierarchical order? I guess you can. I just did. It will be in the same order each and every time. I really think this is a must. It keeps it consistent. So if you have one of Barry's sequences, you might take this and say, okay, clone this. Let's just call this Barry's, hello, I'll get it right. Sequence view, click OK. And then in here, maybe this is going to be different. Maybe he has his spinarchies in a different order, whatever it may be. And then you make that the master view. And now you have this sequencer's order to their props, or you can go back to this one, which might say extreme sequences view or whatever you'd like to call it. Okay, fair enough. I just wanted to cover that because this is part of it. It's very important to have this. Before we get into the sequencing, the other thing on the models themselves. On my models, anything that's in my show, including the Preem cubes, if you were to download a model from Xlights and we were type in here Dazzler, yeah, that's enough, and this brings this up, and it works the same way with Boscoyo, except for, and I'll show you in just a second, this will bring it down and automatically create all the submodel groups in here. This is something I think if Boscoyo does this, it would be a good thing for them, because if I were to bring down, let's say the Ice Queen, let's just put in Ice and let's do a search. There's, oh, okay, so it's Ice Princess. No, I want the Queen. Ice Queen, Ice Queen. All right, we'll bring this down and I'll insert this model. Oh, well, okay, whatever. Okay, it brought it in, but it didn't bring in any of the submodel groups. And this is something that Scott Hansen had made possible, which is absolutely brilliant. And it's going to be some work for the Coral vendors to do. But the idea is that if you bring this in, it should bring in all the submodels. And I would imagine there's submodels in here. Let's take a look. Yeah. So it should bring in the submodels for arms, outer, and all this stuff. And if they were to create a group for this model and call it Boscoyo, this model group, that way, when you brought it in, it would already have the group. So if you had two of these, you could have them all self-contained. So this is a cool feature to have. Yes, go away. And save. Bye-bye. Rings in the new year. Jingle bells, jingle bells. Okay, so that was really weird. All right. So that's a perfect segue into this new sequence I'm working on. And I'm hoping I can get some help from you guys, because I've done no sequencing on the HD props here. And that's sort of what this course is about. And let's go find an HD prop. And I want to share with you some interesting ideas how you can quickly get your HD props singing. And the first thing I like to do is deselect all timings. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go up here and I'm going to create a timing at the beginning. I'm going to right click, add timing track. I'm going to make it empty. Empty's fine. There we go. And I'm going to put a timing mark at the very beginning of the sequence. And if I would stop clicking in the play area, that would be fantastic. Okay. And then I'm going to put 1 at the end. All right, letter T. There we go. So as you can see here, I have something from the beginning to the end of the sequence. And so this is sort of a rough cut of what we can do here. And the purpose of this really is so that I can grab stuff and just put it on this empty layer. So I'm going to go down here to the eaves and look at all the sequencing on the eaves. And since nothing starts until this area, I'm going to copy all of this. See all of that? I'm going to copy that. And then I'm going to paste this onto a high density model. And maybe, just maybe, we'll start with a native model. Maybe we'll start with Grand Illusion just to see what it looks like. And then we'll get to some of these more advanced ones. So first thing I'm going to do is insert a couple layers. Then I'm just going to click in here, right click, paste. Now, I can tell you right off the bat that depending on the effect, various layer settings will or won't give you the desired result. But looking at this right off the bat, I'm not disappointed. I could probably live with that. Let's look at the next one. I could live with that. I could live with that. That's cool. And so basically, the entire song, we've put something in there to give some type of effect. So here's the other thing I like to do in this new empty timing. I will go in here and I will start adding timing marks. And if you hold down the control key, it'll slide like butter. And usually I'll just start kind of randomly putting these here, and then I'll finesse these into place, because if I find an effect that I don't like, I now have the subdivisions based on the song that it's easier for me to copy and paste other components from other models that might work better. Could be the mega tree, could be the matrix, could be anything. And this is a fun way to see how a basic effect on the outlines of your house or your windows. Come on, close enough. There we go. And you'll just spend time finessing this in this way. If something doesn't work, you can copy it from somewhere else. There we go. So you just do that throughout the entire song. Let's take a look, see what the rest of this looks like. I think let's just...
Big fat stacker box with new car keys, even just with family and friends, the holiday.
So there are some things we could do with this and probably change this. There is a timing here that's from a value curve that speeds it up and slows it down. So you'd probably want to make sure, if you're going to change the effect, you keep this. And one of the ways that you can ensure that you keep this, well, actually, you might not, but you can just put it back in there. But why not just work with the effect and see what else we could do with it? Why don't we just change it from overlay center to vertical? It didn't do much. How about horizontal? Well, it's a native file. Let's go down to per model per preview with native. Nothing. Oh, but wait a minute. Now we found something. Now we're cooking. I like that. Total accident. Oh, yes. That's pretty cool. So let's just watch this play back. Now, let's see if it interferes with the continuity of the show.
Canes, we hope for all the presents or to reach in our stockings. Find a big fat stacker box with new car keys, even just with family and friends, the holiday.
Okay, it's not bad. But if you were in my previous class, you would have learned that we could do some things with layer blending. So if we were to take this, maybe go with one as unmask. Now what we're going to do is get all of these colors here to work with this. And now we've created some negative space, and I think that's a little bit more interesting. If we wanted to introduce other colors, we could add a value curve to the hue of this, and we won't do anything too aggressive. Maybe very, very subtle. Why don't we just do this? I want this to be subtle. There we go. And maybe take a look at that and then see the colors change over time. I don't think we're getting that just right. Now we are. Let's see.
Just with stage.
Oh, no. Go back here to one as a mask. Yeah.
Find a big
That's gonna
fat
be better. That's gonna be better.
here.
Unfortunately, I don't know which colors are actually changing with the value curve on this, but you have full reign at it. So again, you're just tweaking a couple of things here. You've already done all the work on your outline. Why not use it? Because two things happen. First of all, you're going to get continuity of the colors all the way around it. So your eyes are not going to venture off and try to figure out where to look because they're light colors. The second thing is you're going to get the same speed at which everything else is moving, so it doesn't pull your attention away. And that's a beautiful thing. We could take this, if we wanted to change this effect, maybe we change this to 90 degrees, and now we've got these spirals kind of kicking in this way. I kind of like that one better, to be honest with you. It's subtle and it just works. So let's say that we love all this stuff. And now what we can do is copy all of this and let's go paste this somewhere else. And this is sort of fun. We're going to go to our squared peg and we're going to see how this looks on here. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to look at spokes, arms, octagon. I'm just going to paste this here. I don't really know what this model is going to do, but it's going to give me some parameters to work with. So if I look at this, that's okay. That's okay. This is the arms. I might bring this down, but one of the things you can start doing here is maybe start removing, if you have any layer blendings, you can remove those. But the idea is we're still working with like-minded colors. Yeah, that's kind of cool. And you just start messing around with where you put these. Or you might take this, copy this, and also maybe put it on the pinwheel. And if you just hold the control arrow right, it'll push that right into place. Oh, now there we go. That's interesting. Maybe speed that up a little bit. And it's a unique, completely different effect. And if you don't like the spokes doing that, move it to squares. I mean, again, another completely different effect. It's not like I started this sequencing going, hey, here's what I want to do, a square peg. I want to have this outer line going symmetrically with circles popping. I just don't think that linearly about models like this. To me, the fun is in experimenting with it and seeing where it goes. Now, let me show you things I see a lot of people doing that I'm not a huge fan of. They'll take a model like this and they'll just go, they'll just go at the model level. And then they'll come in here and do this with the music and they'll do a left to right. And they'll speed this up. You'll see things like this. And maybe they'll put 3D on it. And I'm not a fan of that because you're just exposing the entire prop. And maybe it has a place in a whole house effect, but it's just not my favorite thing. Even if we were to get it going forwards and backwards or the number of cycles, yeah, I just think there's so much more you can do with this than that. Where I prefer, if I'm going to do something at that model level, I want to try to be a little more creative with it and use something like a pinwheel. So I will start off with a pinwheel and I will probably give it some shape. For this song, I might use something like this. And that looks fine. Things like that are cool because it still creates a lot of negative space, but a good, nice little practice thing you could do, copy it, paste it, flip it. And now we have this three-dimensional thing that just draws you in. That's just super cool. And I just, every time people watch my show, they're just like, what is that doing? That is a really cool effect. Or just snow falling also works. But yeah, it's little things like this that can do a lot of cool things. You can stretch yourself, you know. Why don't we now take this and create some movement up and down on the prop? Let's just go, we'll take it from the bottom to the top and we'll do this 4 times. And then we have this. Oh, well, it would help if I actually locked it in, wouldn't it? Oh, there we go. So now we have this going up and we have it going down, except I didn't do the same here. So good way to fix this. This is fun. Just take this, drag over this to here, and then flip it in the transformation. If you make a mistake, you quickly find out there are faster ways to fix things by just overriding it. There you go. And anytime you have a value curve, if you create your own value curves, you can export these so you can bring them in at other times with the names of them. If you highlight over it, you'll see the names. So you can have as many of those as you like. So again, that's just a fun way. What I'm going to do is right click, bulk edit, turn those off. And now we're back to this. So that's sort of a cool thing to do. Your mega tree is another great tool to steal from. Take your mega tree and let's see how much stuff's in here. Now we have some shaders in here, so we got to be a little bit careful with this. But I am curious what this will do on a grand illusion. So I'm going to copy these and I'm going to scroll down here to a grand illusion, or maybe I'll go with something else. Let's see here. I might go with, let's do grand illusion. Let's just do that. Let's just take these out. And let's add another layer below and paste this. And now we're going to be looking for the grand illusion. Where did you go? Way out of place. Okay. So as I mentioned earlier, some effects will look different depending on what the model is. So with the grand illusion, this would probably want to be on per model per preview. This one probably on overlay center. And these guys here probably on horizontal per model. And let's see what we get. That's interesting. Interesting, definitely. And probably what I would do is this here is 2 reveals 1. So I'm going to X this out so I can deconstruct this a little bit and see what it's doing. Do not slide your shaders. Don't do it. Bad idea. Then I'm going to move this out of the way. I'm going to see what are these doing. Oh, well, that's very, very interesting. I kind of like that. And what is this doing? That's just turning. Okay, so maybe I'm going to reduce that palette just a little bit and maybe thicken it up and put this back into place. 2 is true unmask. So we will start playing around with the masks and getting some other things to happen. Now we're inheriting the color. 1 reveals 2. Yeah, that's not so bad, not so bad. And then maybe I'll paste this back in and see what we get. And it may not be anything. Yeah, we're getting it. We're getting it. Let's put it on normal. There we go. So I'd probably do 2 reveals 1, or actually 1 reveals 2. So we see those in the background. And maybe not make this so dominant or just remove it. Let's see. There we go. Now we start seeing these things pop out a little bit. And with shaders, you have to treat these with respect because there are a ton of things they can do, affecting the size, the canvas, the bulk edit. It just never stops. So if I'm brand new to sequencing and I want to build my first sequence, probably what I would do with the timings is create a sequence and do just the eaves, maybe the eaves and the verts. Just get some shaping of the house to the music. Then use some of these things in other aspects of your show. I don't think I have candy canes on here. I'll show you how cool this is just to work with candy canes. I'm going to go up here again. I'm just going to take the eaves. We'll take all the eaves. Let's just grab it this way. There we go. I'm going to copy this. And I'm going to put this on candy canes. And notice how cool the candy canes look with just basic copying, but they look somewhat different too. There we go. Yeah, I mean, it's not bad. And with candy canes, because there are less nodes, you might actually eliminate something, but at least we have something that's working for us that is very similar. Maybe we'll change it to a vertical per model. And again, this could be hours and hours of training to understand how all this stuff works. But it's a matter of combinations of layer blending and layer settings. But if you find something that doesn't look quite right, just change it and then bring things back, lessen it, make it 1, make it 2, make it 3. There's 2 colors, add a color in. Now I've got 3 things happening with colors. And that's okay to introduce some blue in here. It probably wouldn't hurt. Then we'll go look at this next one. And again, it looks okay, but it's overlay center. It's set to 180. We probably want that to be set to none. And then maybe we want to try this on vertical. Or we could try it on horizontal, which is going to look just about the same, a little different. So you have just all these choices. But what you're not having to do is recreate the sequence from scratch for your high density props. That's just brilliant. Here's pixel poles. Let's just take these pixel poles. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on here. And let's go to XLS. And let's see, those started there. And we're going to start with center, outline, spokes, rings. And I'm just going to paste these all here. Actually, well, a lot of things pasted, didn't they? Nice. But again, we can look at this first section. We see some things going on. And maybe we limit it. Or, believe it or not, if we take all of this and put it at the group level, we'll add 3 layers beneath this. At the group level, this will probably look interesting. I just put those on flakes, didn't I? Nice. Flakes group. Oh, that is my flakes group. I'm looking for my XLS group. Oh, it looks like I've moved some things around in here. Actually, let's do this here. We're going to put it on the arms group. I love the arms group. And again, if you have models that don't have groups, man, you need to get them. There we go. This is just one group of arms on this XLS flake. It is simply this here. It is arm 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And it may have the rights in there. So what we do to find that out is we go up here to our XLS arms group. And that's going to be down here further. We look at here and we see that that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's just, yeah, that is just 6 submodels in each of these, causing this really cool effect here. And it just absolutely works with the sequence.
We all know how the story goes when the fat man's jolly going ho 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 when he tiptoes along without being.
Yeah, I like it. See, you guys are helping me out a ton with this course. Brilliant. Except now I have to go in here and figure out what I need to pull out of here. But you know, another example. Here's another effect that we pasted just on the right arms of that. And now we've got this other movement based on the music.
It's pumpkin spice and cinnamon and ginger.
And it's a little bit too fast for what I like. So I would probably change that. I might even take the value curve out and see what it looks like.
It's pumpkin spice and cinnamon.
Except it needs speed.
Cinnamon and gingerbread houses.
Yeah,
all
much better,
the
much
Latin cold
better, much better. So I hope that is helpful. I know when you see this and this and this, and you see all these groups, you don't have to panic. You don't have to populate all of them. It just is you making your sequence unique for your show. And certainly if you're going to buy sequences and map them in, then you want to map like for like. But if you've got props from somebody else and they don't match the groups here, just make sure you have groups. And then when you're importing your sequence, when you go to import it, try mapping a few things in. Or if you want to, have two windows open and copy and paste, whatever you like to do to make it as easy and efficient for you as possible. The idea is you're trying to convey a story, you're trying to tell it, you're trying to make things look similar. I don't want to pick on anyone's sequence, but I see stuff out there that I wonder why is there so much flashing and stuff going on all over the place? And I don't know if I should look left side of the house, right side of the house, top, bottom. It's sort of like gymnastics for the sake of sequencing gymnastics. And if you're a viewer, your eye is going to be drawn to the contrast and the movements of things that pull your attention away. I think in any sequence, you should be able to look directly at it and take it all in. And then decide what part you want. Do you want to look at the Santa getting, all jiggy and leaving presents? Do you want to concentrate on the singer? Do you want to concentrate on what the tree's doing? I just don't think, unless it's by design, that any one thing should take a ton of attention away. And it's very common for people to say, did you add those? I didn't see those last time. And I always look at that as a compliment, because it's not like they said, wow, it looks like you just have a lot going on. Most people go, I didn't see that before. That's very cool. Did you add it? No, it's always been there. Oh, I guess I just didn't notice it. I was just seeing the show, and I sort of appreciate that. But the other reason there's always quite a bit going on is because your layout, because I'm a provider of sequences, I don't know if you have arches, windows. I don't know if you have high density or not. And I know there's been discussions about, well, shouldn't you have everybody's props and models? And no, because it's not about whose props I use on my home or put in my store. It's about the knowledge sharing with people on how to take this and apply it to anything. So this is more of an education issue. It's not whose prop you decide to put on your house. Okay. I prefer these props because I've been part of the birth process of a lot of these props. And so it means a lot to me. And that's why they're there. And that's why I love it. All right. We are about 9 after. I want to leave plenty of time for people to ask me questions, as we did in the previous course. So if we could open it up to questions, that'd be great.
Tony asked one in the chat, by the way.
Okay, yeah, just open up chat. Awesome. So Ron will include some EFL props. Sure. Clearly the most understanding wife, no doubt. Yep. Happy anniversary. Thank you very much. Thank you for that. Can't see the right side of your screen. It's right here. Interesting. What a concept. I've tried something that was way more work. Okay. Yep. What is a good approach for adding models to a layout that do not have download? Okay, so yeah, that's actually a good one. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about something that if you were to download it here and it doesn't include the models here, what's the best way to get them in there?
Yeah, this is Tony. The other part of that was, for example, the baby versions of some of the large models aren't always downloadable, but they share so much commonality. How do you get the submodels and groups in a good way?
If it's the baby, I would just use the grand illusion and know that you're never going to use the 2 outer rings. Call it a day.
Would you bother to modify them or just leave it as is?
I'd leave it as is, because the only thing you're missing are the 2 outer rings. All the effects, to my knowledge, will look the same.
Great. And then the other question might be of interest to people as well. I had a follow-up, which is on the ring style, on the circle style models. How do you get traditional effects like, for example, the burst effects to render correctly? Do you create a matrix submodel, or is there a good approach for that when you just want something like the spiral to render across it in a more traditional way?
Yeah, so that's a great question. If we just focus in on the native files, that being the Grand Illusion. Grand Illusion is a perfect one. So if we were to put a spiral on here, and this is at the, we're just going to put this on overlay center. So on overlay center, it does this. So if you want it to have that traditional look, you have to go to overlay per model per preview. And so we'll put red and green in there. That's how you get that traditional look. Otherwise, you get things like this, which I like a lot. Or I might go with one color. So other effects, to get them to do just what you want, a single strand effect. If we look at this and we put this on overlay center, that's what we're getting. If I put it on overlay per model per preview, that's typically what it would do if it was at the individual single model by itself. Okay. Your first question was, what about something like a shockwave? This is where it gets sort of confusing. A shockwave on here, if I put it on overlay center, it starts from the bottom and it goes up, which is still a cool effect. It's not a bad effect, but it's not doing what I want it to. In order to get this type of effect to look proper, or the way it's intended, is to put it on overlay per model per preview. Now it starts in the center and goes out. There are two models that are specific that work this way, and that would be the two native models, the Grand Illusion and the Mother of All Wreaths. They work the same way. There are times where you just need to put it on per. So if something doesn't look right, go to per model per preview and check that out. It'll probably clean it up for you right away.
Fantastic, thanks.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Not all of these effects were born the same time by the same people, so they do behave differently depending on what they're being put on. So if we put a wave effect here, this is the way it should look going across two props. We put it on overlay center, and now it's something really kind of different. And we could go in here and start playing with the triangle and different things, and we get this kind of stuff going. When you put it on per model per preview based on my previous example, oh, it's just looking like it's normal. That's what it's supposed to do. You put it on horizontal, and it's yet a completely different effect. And if we open it up to the size of the wave, now we've got that. But they're not doing it at the same time. They're kind of off center from each other. So how do we get that to work? Well, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. Oh, but that sort of works, but it doesn't look the same. And so there are all these various combinations to try to get it to look right. There have been times I've worked with this where I want to do certain things, and depending on the model, it just won't do what I want it to do. And so in some of my sequences, this is what I have. It still looks good. It's a nice contrast, you know, sort of the call and answer, or even something like that. And then just, you know, give a little movement to it. Disappears, comes back, disappears, comes back, disappears, comes back. It's just all in fun. All right. X-Lights locks up sometimes and will crash. Yeah, that is true. Sliding. You never mentioned sliding shade. Oh, yes. Well, if you want me to purposely crash X-Lights, I can do that right now. If you're going to have a shader somewhere in here and you want to move this left and right, I suggest that you can arrow it, but see there, I can't arrow it left again. It's all like, I'm about to give you the finger, and it's thinking, it's thinking, it's thinking, and it's going to sit here and think. Shaders are intense for X-Lights. They also, I believe, utilize your GPU, and I have a pretty good GPU on my computer. This has sort of been going on for a long time, and I can sit here and wait for this, or I can just do this. in task. It's faster for me to just come back in here, start again. And this is why if you're in the middle of a sequence and if you haven't saved, you better save your work. If you're somewhere in between that first 3 minutes and you haven't saved, you're about to lose work. So just be careful. What you should do if you're going to deal with the shader, and this time I'll put it on the mega tree, and we'll actually put something on here. We'll just go over here. Yeah, that's not very pretty. But anyway, if you're going to move this somewhere, Control X, Control V, Control X, wherever you're going to put it, Control V. You can push it up and you can push it down. Do not drag it left or right, or it's going to bite.
Are you going to have any of the samples that you've done like capable to download for like so people can mess with them?
Samples that I've done for you to download, like samples of
Like what stuff you've been doing, like showing us how to little tricks in your two different classes.
Well, they're both being recorded, so you'll be able to go check those out, and you can certainly slow those down and just copy what I'm doing. Put an effect that you see me put on there, see what I put on here, and just mimic it.
Okay.
But I don't know that I'm keeping any of those effects that I put on there. I have a very bad habit of doing stuff, and then I'll close the window, I won't save it, but I'll come back and figure out what I did or something even better.
Hey, Ron,
Yes.
how are you handling, I guess, the newer arches, the high density ones? Do you look at them differently or something than you are with this stuff?
The newer, I'm sorry?
High density arches.
High density arches. You mean like
with all with all the filled in, the spiny type ones and everything like that.
Yeah, well, yeah. So I love the Gilbert Engineering spinarchies. I'll play with this stuff, and this stuff is just a ton of fun to mess with. Because let's just give this a nice red color, and then I might pull something like this over here on the wiggle side, and get you a vertical. Well, that just looks like. That's not what I want that to do at all. And I usually pull these off to the side so I can try different things to get them to do what I want. Maybe overlay center, and maybe do that. Maybe go from middle. Yeah, different things. And then put them together and figure out what's going to look good. And maybe we should go with a different color. Yeah, not liking that at all. But there's not that many submodels on this. I don't think this needs a ton of submodels. I can tell you that this effect here, the wave, is a wonderful effect for this prop. There's a ton of things you can do with it. And then it's just a matter of playing and then getting some movement going. We can change the height of this. We can use a value curve for the height. And you get all this stutter stepping in here. So for like a dubstep song, you can figure out where these punches are. You can go in here and say, okay, you know what? What I'm going to do is I'm going to make some changes to this. And maybe this is maybe at this section or this section, that's where it's at. And then I'm going to possibly export this with a different name and keep it and use it. The other thing that's interesting about this, let me turn on a timing track. Let me turn off the new timing. And I think this is something people would benefit from. If we have, no, don't play. If we have timings in here, hello, I need a timing selected, Ron. Thank you. T. So if this were the rhythm of this sequence, of this section here, and this was what we're trying to do in that section, we can go in here and we can look at the value curves for this, and maybe we want to work with scale the height. That timing is now in here. So if I want this to just go straight across to here, and we could delete these. So we'll delete that. And let's take you over here, and then maybe we'll want to come down here, and we go way up over. Let's delete some more of these. So you could put these on these punches, whatever the timing might be, whatever syncopation you make. And then if I just click here, I'll drag this down, and then that's out. So basically I've got something happening in every section here, going up to this beat, this beat, this beat, this beat, this beat. I did this with Devil Went Down to Georgia with the ride bell cymbal part in that song, and it was really cool. We click OK, and now we can look at this based on where it's going. So here, change, 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 change. And so this is a great way to customize value curves to follow the rhythm of the music. Whether you're using beats or custom tappings of the syncopation of the music, this is where you can truly differentiate what you do in your sequence than anything else. Because for drum beats and hard hits of an orchestra, this is great. And you can have something follow that. All right, that's just long-winded. What else? Am I missing more questions?
Quick question on the sequence you're doing now, up on the timeline, it's only 30 seconds. Is there a way to expand that 30 seconds to a longer time?
Oh yeah. Good question. Sequence settings, it's default for X-Lite to set to 30. I can set this to 120. Done. And now there's our 2 minutes.
Can you go back and do that again? I missed the first time.
Absolutely. So file, sequence settings, and you can make this any number you want. So maybe I only want the sequence to be 40.
That will stay that time until you change it again, correct? Or will it automatically default back to the 30 seconds?
Yeah, well, it won't default back. Whatever you, as long as I save this, it'll keep the 25 seconds. Or if I want to make it 2 minutes, then I could just go in here and put in 120, and there we go.
Okay,
That just
cool.
gives you room there. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, you bet. All right, we've got 6 minutes. Master view by default. I see some other people answering questions. You may need to right click and sort it, reorder it, use prior. Okay. Were there questions about the master view? Actually, I'm seeing something in there. I do not like the idea of any view being in alphabetical order. I don't quite understand that. I put my tree topper here because it's actually on top of my mega tree, and then my matrix. These that are not necessarily in other groups, you can put these wherever you like. You just want to make sure you have your all pixels group at the top, and then followed by whatever you want. What's important is in the submodel group order, for instance, the steampunk here, spinner group. This order right here is important. If I take this entire group and put it up here and push the Grand Illusion group down, nothing matters. Doesn't matter. If I change the order of the steampunk spinner submodels, things are going to matter. But these could be in any order you like. If on your layout physically you have certain models that are higher up, then put the whole group higher up, and there's no harm, no foul. The biggest thing is, for me, the Dazzler group is always going to be here. And the reason I put everything in a group is because I could do more at the group level. It also makes it easier for me that when I do add props to that group, if I download a secondary Dazzler, so I have 2 Dazzlers. If I added a third Dazzler, let's just do that. I'm going to show you how this works. It's pretty cool. I'm going to put this in here. I'm going to tell it I want the Dazzler, Dazzler, search. There's the Dazzler, insert model. It's going to say, hey, this model contains groups that already exist. Would you like to add this model to existing groups? You mean add them to my 2 so I don't have to do any manual work? Yes, please. And then like that, It's done. And if we go up here to the GE Dazzler group, instead of seeing 2 models in there, we're going to see 3 of each. So let's test it. Let's just look at the Dazzler outer rings. Dazzler outer ring, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That is beautiful. Diamonds. And we can scoot this over. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all the way through. That's the first one, second one, and third one. Do I have 4 of these? I might. But it puts them all in there. Dazzler 3. Dazzler 2. Dazzler 1. I didn't have to do anything extra. And if I delete this, it's going to give me these warnings. Hey, you got all these things in groups. I mean, you want me to get rid of them? Just hit your space bar over and over, and it'll get rid of them. And then it'll get rid of that. Hit save. It's that easy. Now, here's my challenge to all the vendor providers for Coro. For your top selling models, I would start to do this because it makes it easier for everybody in the community to be able to click on this button, tell it which model you want. It creates the submodel groups for you in that order. At least it's a start, because no matter what you have here in this order, I mean, you can always change things if you need to. Here, this should never change. These should always be in an order of 1 through. But if you need to change those over here, like I told you a while ago, you can create your various views for different sequence providers and put them in that